This is a brief, maybe 20-30 minute little presentation about Congressional District 9. It reviews issues that affect it, but the bottom line or major question that's explored is what makes a congressional district a community. The 9th District is our main link to the federal representation. We also have 2 state senators. And the 9th is also a kind of a lens through which you can see other representatives that share in the leadership of the people who live here. The 9th has representation that involves 6 community boards, 8 New York City council members, 27 representatives to the New York State Legislature. Brooklyn's representation includes 5 other members of Congress, and they're mostly Democrats. So we are a community of Democrats, except for Dan Donovan, who's a congressman from Staten Island, but also has a part of Brooklyn of Bay Ridge and Bensonhurst. But first, we should take a look at the whole United States. The 9th is in 1 county, but there are 3,143 United States counties. This map shows the 2016, but the margins were small. Elizabeth Warren put it this way: of the 493 of the wealthiest and urban counties voted for Clinton, but the other 2,623 counties were composed of small towns, suburbs, rural areas, and they voted for Trump, again, by a small margin. So the map produced 46 Democratic senators, 2 independents who generally vote with the blue side. There are 52 Republican senators, and in the House of Representatives there are 193 Democrats and 237, or just recently 238 Republicans. There are 4 open seats now. We're looking for votes in Montana, California, Georgia, and South Carolina, probably by the end of June. Clerk.house.gov and Flippable take a major interest if you want to follow up on those. This is what the map in the United States looked like. It was a purple 2012 map. And in 2016, essentially, it was just a little less purple. The difference between a presidential win and a loss was just 38 electoral votes. A good place, kind of a fun place to look at it is the 272 Win website. 38 vote electoral vote difference couldn't be thought of as the Texas differential. Texas has 38 votes, and it would be interesting as organizations like Indivisible and the other resistance groups could think of just flipping Texas, and there would be a win. 270 makes the win because there are 538 members of the Electoral College, and for an analysis of the difference between the popular vote and the electoral vote, there's a really good little lecture at the National Constitution Center available at that link that describes in detail the constitutional content between the popular vote and the Electoral College. So that's a brief look at the national picture. New York State has 62 counties, and like the nation as a whole, the diversity of urban areas has real power. The little map of New York State doesn't look that different from the map of the United States. It was the urban centers, New York City, Westchester, Buffalo, Rochester, that carried the 27 electoral votes of New York State into the blue column and for Hillary Clinton. Other maps that are really interesting are those that show the proportional urban difference, but the very large geographic areas of the lower population areas that voted for by margins that were quite small in many areas for Donald Trump. The other interesting thing is the 5 counties in New York City. there are a variety of opportunities to take a look at what a blue state and a blue city can do in the context of the overall resistance movement. And the one thing that came up for us by Flippable, as a matter of fact, is to point out that Chris Cheen is a Democrat running for office in the state assembly. Other congressional representatives that have a part of Brooklyn are Nydia Velasquez in District 7. She represents parts of Sunset Park, a little bit of Red Hook, downtown Brooklyn, Brooklyn Heights, Williamsburg, a little bit of Bushwick, East New York, and Cypress Hills. Hakeem Jeffries is another representative, District 8, who represents Fort Greene, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Canarsie, a good part of Midwood, Bergen Beach, Coney Island, and other neighborhoods. Brooklyn is also represented by Dan Donovan in a little bit of, well, not really Bensonhurst, but sort of Bensonhurst and Bay Ridge and all of Staten Island. Jerry Nadler is the 10th Congressional, has probably one of the most interesting districts, has the Brooklyn waterfront, a little bit of tiny bit of Sunset Park, large portion of Bensonhurst, Lower Manhattan, and all the way up the west side of Manhattan. And Carolyn Maloney also represents Brooklyn, Greenpoint, but also has Hunters Point, Long Island City, and a good portion of the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And of course, the 9th Congressional District, led by Yvette Clarke. She represents Flatbush, East Flatbush, Ditmas, Midwood, other neighborhoods, a little bit of Sheepshead Bay. So, in the Congressional District 9th, it forms a strong geographic unit, not unlike Carol Maloney's or Dan Donovan's. And this is a real asset, particularly of the urban environment, and it's our job to give this district value. The population of the district is just over 750,000 people. 39% of us were born in another country, and in comparison to the United States, 13, I think, percentage of the population was born in another country, and 59% of the population were born in the United States. But fully half of us share the problem of quality housing and its affordability. This affects 49% of the households in the district, and another 9% may be headed in that direction. 35% of household income is generally the benchmark against which affordability is measured. We have 194,000 people who go to school. That's a fairly significant number. And we have an educational attainment that's fairly high. A bachelor's degree, associate's degree in some college is there, but it also includes 15% of the population, which amounts to 81,000 people that have a graduate or professional degree. All of this is percentages of the population that are 25 years and older, and estimates in 2014 that was 522,000 of the 750 plus thousand people that live in the district. The 364,000 is like 2014 people who are working, earn their incomes from education services and healthcare. That's about 34%. Another percentage, just over 20, work and earn their incomes in professional, scientific, management, administrative services, and retail trade. The other portions of the population make it an extremely diverse and talented community in arts and entertainment, finance, insurance, transportation, information services, construction, manufacturing, wholesale trade, public administration. The community's median income is just over 50,000. Our average income is around 77,000. The annual payroll, what people bring home from all of the employment sectors that I briefly described, is $4.3 billion. But the really important point here is that the half of that income, the 2.3, actually almost 2.4 billion, is from healthcare and social assistance. So we're a community that knows how to care for one another, but that's also a portion of the economic health of our community that's threatened by the challenges to the ACA. In fact, just in the Downstate Medical Center, North and South Winthrop and Clarkson, have about 8,000 people working in health-related fields and that health complex. And we'll get into that in a couple of seconds. But on the positive side, our economic diversity is an extremely valuable asset to examine. The communities, in fact, shoulder-to-shoulder kind of training ground in the battle for fairness. That battle for fairness is exhibited by cities. As you can see, the dark green areas of the region have median incomes over 120,000, which our district has as well, but we are inclusive and have households whose median incomes range between 17,000 and 50,000. The American Fact Finder is a great website by the United States Bureau, and it pulls data, most of which you've experienced in this presentation, by congressional district using sampling algorithms, is reasonably accurate to make decisions about. And it's also very useful and fun to play with, and it's open to anyone at any time to examine. And that data is parsed by census tract, as this little map presents. And so the little image on the right there is the Brooklyn College campus. You can see that it has got 3,400 people who live around that campus. But the point of this slide is that in the perfect world, organizations such as the Indivisible9 would have at least one person in each of these relatively small areas to compare data, such as the parsed out data from census tract, with the real experience of living there. And if that were so, it's the perfect organizing tool for getting out the vote for any candidate in any office. This research is compiled in various report formats, and available online through and is in search of people who want to dig in and drill down to some of the detail of this particular district's community and its real needs. But I'll just give you one example as a reasonable way to move forward, combining the experience of people with data about the district. That example involves the Health Plus Hospitals, formerly Health and Hospitals Corporation, who is facing the threat of $1 billion deficit with the loss of federal and state aid by 2020. This is related directly to the Medicaid payments, the condition of the Affordable Care Act after they continue to work it, either to the benefit or detriment of the people in this district. But the failure to reform overall means the city's hospitals will have to provide more health care for unreimbursed health care for uninsured people. Those 8,000 employees that I mentioned earlier are largely, substantially represented by this extraordinary campus in the 9th District that, given the promise of the Affordable Care Act, moved to establish programs that would move from sick care to wellness. And that little image in the upper right-hand corner is the beginning of an architectural representation of more open, more high-quality communication towards wellness versus waiting for people to walk into the emergency room. This little book called Lean Behavioral Health is an excellent history and study of the new management towards wellness versus waiting for people to come in who are desperately sick. And it was built with some confidence of a national healthcare program that would help to establish wellness for people based on the high percentage, reasonably high given the state of the Affordable Care Act now, at somewhere between 83 and over 87% of the population who already carry health insurance. That means that there is a foundation for establishing wellness for a substantial portion of the population. And as far as the national image is concerned, the percentage of the people who are insured and capable of presenting a foundation towards real progress in American well care as opposed to American sick care is represented by the dark blue in this map. But the solution to the problem can in fact be regional and led by organizations such as the SUNY Downstate with the resources, because here we have again a population here in Queens which is a very low percentage, less than 80 to 83% of the population, and is one of the most diverse boroughs in the city, but is also very nearby a very low percentage population that's covered by insurance. And so the region offers the resource to really tackle the issue of wellness over sickness through institutions like the Downstate Medical Center. Housing was also brought out as a potentially critical issue affecting the well-being of people in the short term. New York City has a substantial number of incentive programs that are involved throughout our district, essentially in discretionary tax incentives, essentially rebates, and some grants and loans, low-interest loans. And so the possibility for cutting off a housing crisis is there. It's just a matter of whether or not the constituency can be developed to pursue it. And here too, there is as in the healthcare insurance, there is a foundation upon which the city can build. It has in and around, not completely within, the congressional 9th, about 100,000 housing units that are subject to the rent stabilization laws. This is also a subject that is extremely important in order to create the stability of housing in a community. So what makes a congressional district, sorry for the sudden black and white here, but the answer from the political action point of view that makes the congressional 9th a community is to find ways to gather a massive number of votes as that community that is defined by specific issues, such as those briefly presented here, that are based on health and housing facts that are in fact threatening this community or causing changes in it that would go unanticipated without research and without careful examination. So moving on that lens idea, we have just within the 9th Congressional District the ability to focus on 8 New York City Council members. How are they treating us in relationship to those two issues, our health and our housing? The same lens could be applied to the New York State Senate. We have 3 main senators, but 8 overall, who have a tiny portion of the district that is the 9th Congressional District. How well are they relating to the needs of the residents of this community in just those 2 issues, our health and our housing? And it gets even more interesting when there are over 10 members of the New York State Assembly that share a portion of the 9th Congressional District with whom we would want people to engage and to understand their role in the provision of health and housing services for the people of this district. And we have quite a large number of community districts, community boards. 197A, I'm sorry for that, that's numerical jargon. It refers to the city charter provision that creates the law for the functioning of community boards and district managers. But again, the point is, what is the experience of the individual managers and volunteer participants on community boards appointed by the borough president and with participation from the state legislature? And what is their experience in relationship to just those two issues, the health of this community and the affordability of its housing? And last but not least, in looking for places for leadership and for understanding issues, we have participants, the parent leadership that exists in the school districts. And community boards, the state legislature, and the school districts are all places in which people are active participants in the development of new policies, resources that are important to the health and welfare of the people in the 9th Congressional District. And finally, from a political research point of view, it's really important to understand the role and effectiveness of all 24 Democratic clubs that are currently functioning in Brooklyn, have various websites and Facebook pages. The reform movement, however, is led by that top seven, what was called the Brooklyn Reform Coalition, in reaction to the old Boss Club, Mita Esposito, Vito Lopez. So it's important for participants in Indivisible 9th and the resistance movement in general throughout Brooklyn to understand what was learned and what is the path moving forward, such as the purpose of 24 Democratic clubs and 5 Republican. It's probably quite reasonable. It's just worthy of additional research for empowerment purposes. But in putting this presentation together, the essential question came to mind, that the lens through which the District 9, Congressional District 9 functions in New York State is within the overall atmosphere of $160 billion, $54 billion of which is federal, $80 billion in New York City, $8.5 billion, which is federal, nice big round numbers, that are all ruled by these groups of people in one way or another. They are involved in the expenditure of $250 billion every year. And to put that in perspective, that is 2.5 times the famous size of the Koch Industries, whose $100 billion in annual revenue and 100,000 employees are dwarfed by the simple behavior of the New York state budget and the New York City budget. It seems that it is the constituents' responsibility as a lens through the 9th, and that's just these 42 individuals here, plus the 6 Brooklyn congressional delegation, to examine how their power is represented in the United States Congress and in New York State and City. And finding ways to treat the 9th Congressional District as a lens is then replicable in all of the other districts, for which there would be considerable overlap, but a great new force of energy is possible in examining the power of these individual congressional districts in relationship to New York City and New York State and the United States Congress in general. New York City has a few other congressional reps that are worthy of mention. Tom has a small portion of New York City and therefore may have insight from his constituents with regard to the role of the congressional delegation in and throughout Long Island. We have 2 Republican members, Lee and Peter King. We also have Grace Meng in an extraordinarily diverse district in Queens, and we have Greg Meeks, also a very interesting district through the entire Broad Channel environment and the barrier reef that protects all of New York City from storm surge. And last but not least, we've got Jose Serrano, Congressional District 15, Scott Ursania, all of the South Bronx, and the all-important Hunts Point, and Joe Crowley, who is our congressman from Astoria, outside on the move still, in College Point, on the main neighborhoods. And if using the ninth as a lens can function really well in isolating issues of extreme importance to the health and well-being of the constituents of one congressional district, that model can, in fact, be very, very effective in expressing those needs throughout New York State. The challenge that most recently came up was Faso in the 19th and Collins in the 27th, who have, in fact, established a amendment to the replace and repeal bill that took the portion of each county's payment for Medicaid and put it on the state. Now, that was nothing more than a ploy to attack a Democratic governor from a Republican constituents. I don't even think Collins and Faso thought of it themselves. It's called the Buffalo bailout for some reason. But it is really worthy of understanding the deep rhythms that are being built into the conservative movement that are in fact attempting to take on New York. I don't think they'll win, but they're certainly taking a good shot at it. I think there's a lot to learn from the ninth. Again, sorry about the sudden black and white, but it's just to get the words out. Mobilizing work is good. I'm not against any march anywhere. But getting it into an organization is a very, very big step. And like small businesses, 8 out of 10 don't make the first 5 years, but those that do change the world. So using the ninth as that kind of lens through which to understand the city and, in some cases, the entire country, people are needed to mobilize on health and housing as top priorities, but they have to organize through a variety of means to look at other issues that are probably as equally important and that require research on education, immigration, how many people of our community are foreign born in another country, a substantial percentage, 3 times as much as this country overall. So then that's a relationship with all the other service providers in government and the private sector are extremely important. But the research on the needs and balancing those with the real issues that affect people in the short term will strengthen our congressional leadership and give them the power they need to take the chances that they'll have to take on the current condition, political condition at the federal as well as the state level. But it is our responsibility to give them strength and to vote for them and to be for them, of course, until we're not. Okay, here's a little update since this little presentation came together. Of the 435 now in the United States Congress, 194 are Democrats, 240 Republicans. GOP took Kansas, Montana, and Georgia, all expected, although the Democrats seem to have done better even in the short term. And the Democrats kept the California 6th in a Democrat-to-Democrat runoff. Christine Pellegrino, who I mentioned in a slide, as race is important to see from the New York City's point of view or the state. One, her election, she's a member of the Democratic Party. That graphic on the right says it's not just the numbers, it's the gender, race, religion, education, age of our congressional representatives that should also have an influence about how they reflect our country. The sources for that are there below. I'm really interested in finding other people who want to do research on any issue. The ones I highlighted here for on health the health of our community and on housing are, in my opinion, the two top issues, although education, immigration, and other issues remain very important. So if you feel like you could put in a few hours on and research on an issue, please consider doing so. Use that communitydesign.net/indivisible as a place to make that known to me. Thank you for your time. I hope you know a little bit more about the 9th Congressional District that you didn't know before.